Most emails get ignored, not because email is dead, but because they're boring, generic, and forgettable. Danielle Savalios is here to show us how to inject personality into your emails so that they actually get opened, read, and clicked. If you're tired of your emails landing in the abyss, keep listening. Welcome to Superhuman Selling. I am personally so excited for the guest and the conversation that we're going to have today because as entrepreneurs, as leaders, I know that we are always looking to grow our audience, our reach, and not just to grow, but to actually connect with people in a meaningful way. And one of the tools and mediums that we all know that we could probably be doing a better job with, but sometimes feels daunting or overwhelming is email. And so I have an amazing expert with us today, not just in email, but in all things marketing, brand growth. But we're going to dive in specifically to how to quantum lead your business and your list through best practices with email. So I have Danielle Savalios with us today. Uh, Hello, we are so excited to have you. I know that you have so much success in the business world. You're the president of the Conviction Marketing Agency and Kelly Roach International. You're a conversion copywriter, and you work specifically with 7 and 8 figure brands. And I know you've brought multiple businesses to the 7 and 8 figure level, which is incredible. So I cannot wait to learn from you. And I know you've also shared that some of your background in email and copywriting came from, I believe, chronicling your family's adoption journey, right? So maybe if you could share a little bit about what started you on this path and how you personally cultivated such a passion about this topic, that would
Yeah.
be a great way to start.
Yeah, that's a long story. I will make it really, really short. So, thanks so much for having me, by the way. I'm excited to dive into these topics as well. I was always a writer. Like I was one of those good in school and then my junior year English teacher was like, you know how to write. And she put me in AP English. And then I just from that day believed like I knew how to write. And so when we were going through our adoption process, we adopted our daughters from Ethiopia. And this was like back in the day. It wasn't very common to have an adoption blog, but like I knew a couple people who did. And the reason I started mine was because we had family out of town and everybody was asking. We had like a 2-year process. It was like a whole big thing and a long, long story. And it was just a way to keep people updated and kind of in the loop. And also just a lot of people would ask us like, what made you decide to adopt? Why did you choose this country? So it was also just a way to sort of educate people on the process, why we felt called to it, and all the information and all the questions that we were getting. So in doing that, obviously this was early on. I was like coding websites. I don't even know. I'm like, I don't know how anything worked. I just was like, I'm learning the internet. And so I started the blog. And one of the very first things that like the few people who were talking about this told you to do was start an email list. So I got like my MailChimp account and started trying to get people basically to like sign up for updates for new blog posts. And so I would have more people viewing the blog. So follow that through. I learned Instagram when it came out and learned all these things so that I could basically bring more people to blog. Pinterest. I went like Pinterest viral for like some posts I wrote after we adopted our girls and basically just kept that blog up for a while after we brought our daughters home and kind of, it was like a faith mom blog and like had some success and was like, I'm going to keep doing this. I was a full-time teacher at the time. We were about to go overseas as missionaries. And I was like, this is a great way to make some money. I was like trying to live that life of like an entrepreneur before this world really existed, before people were like making money online. It was like pre the big bubble. And so I was like, I know I can figure this out. In that process, I ended up working for someone who had an agency. She now has a very, very, very large health and wellness company. And she was coaching me to be a personal trainer online, which because I was a certified personal trainer. And I hated it. And she was like, well, you write, don't you? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, do you want to write for me? because I need somebody to do some writing. And I was like, sure. So I started doing her writing. Her husband like couldn't tell it wasn't her. She was like, oh my gosh, this has never happened. So I was like, oh, okay, we're doing well. And so then she started asking me to write for her clients. So I probably wrote for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, all female fitness pros, health wellness space. I knew nothing. Like, I didn't know how to write a sales page. So they're like, hey, it's in Asana, go write a sales page. And I'm like, Googling how to write a sales page. Like, I would just learn it while I was doing it and ultimately just develop the skills. I eventually started to like actually like invest in learning conversion copy. And so over about 10 years, I've written, I don't know, 20,000 hours, probably longer, of just like I would go teach at school. I was a cheer coach. I had my daughters. I would come home and I'd write for 3 or 4 hours for years. I had my own copywriting business and, I had to eat. So I was hustling out there. I said yes to everything. I was like, you need a 10-page case study on keto? Sure. I don't know anything about that. I'll figure it out. And so like I just would take on anything basically, and eventually ended up writing for Kelly Roach. That is how I became like her contractor at first. And she wanted me to be her head of marketing. And now I run 3 of her 6 companies. And it's been kind of a crazy wild ride. But at the heart of it has been the understanding of brand messaging, positioning, and good copy, and then all the marketing that surrounds that. So it's been a long journey, kind of windy, but I guess that's everybody's story.
Yeah. What a beautiful story though. And I think that a lot of times our gifts are uncovered through the process of just doing something that we're passionate about, that we love, that's from the heart, and then it's almost mirrored to us. Like, you have this amazing gift for writing and for connecting with people. I'm curious to hear your take, Danielle, on AI with email copywriting and how you view it, how you use it, how, because there's just so much that we can do now, and yet there's still like, how do we bring that element of just from the heart and like true connection? So what's your take on that now?
This is like an ongoing battle. If I'm honest, there's a part of me that is very resistant to it, just from like an ethical foundation of like, I believe humans are unique and innately made this in a certain way, and I don't want to replace them. I don't feel like that's like I don't think it's good for human flourishing. At the same time, I recognize that people thought that about the internet, and look at us now. Like, so there's a balance to me of, okay, can I look at this in a way that is going to support human flourishing, but not try to replace it or usurp the role of humans in the world? As a writer, obviously there's a lot you can do with it. It is still very, and I don't think this will always be the case, but right now it is still very, very devoid of any like the human aspect of writing, right? There's an art and a science to writing. And so when you think about what AI is, it is generative in that it pulls from what's already in existence. And so it's only going to be able to pull, number one, from what's already out there. So in terms of thought leadership and new ideas, it can't generate those because they have to be put out in the world to then be able for, AI to pull it. So that's number one, which is really important. If you're someone who wants to be seen as a thought leader in your industry, you have to have new ideas, and that can't be coming from AI. So that's one. Number two, it can't know your stories, your feelings, the emotions. And so that to me is the competitive advantage. That's why people read something in our video driven world, is because there feels like there's a connection. That's why we read fiction books. That's why like we like certain authors over others, even if they're talking about the same thing. It's because of how they deliver the content. So I think it's a tool that can be used in the writing process. I am very, very wary of people using it to create their brand content, because that's your reputation in the world. And if you're allowing it to generate all of your emails, all of your social media content, you're really giving that power away to something that's not human. And we're living in a world that's lacking in trust right now. And so to not be actively pursuing authenticity and trust in today's world feels like a really, really bad move. Like, it just, that the people who are like connecting and really building relationships are the ones who will win long term. I think that's like a competitive advantage that we all have access to. So I kind of have a theory of like, use it in the process. I don't let our agency team like, the newer girls aren't allowed to use it. You have to learn the skills. You have to learn it first. I can get in there and use it because I can feed it my own frameworks, feed it 25 sales pages I've written personally, hand by hand. Like I can program it with certain things, get the outcome, and then look at it and say, these are the things that need to change. And I can do that relatively quickly because I've done it for 10, 20, 30,000 hours. I don't know how many. They've not done that. So they don't have that framework. They can't give it the same information. They can't pull the same stuff out. And then it's really duplicating work. So I feel like it's got a place. I'm still like kind of figuring out what the place is and where I feel like that can ethically fit and where I feel like it's not watering down a brand because you can't be creating generic content anymore. You especially can't do it in emails because people are so exhausted by stupid emails. So you really have to be thoughtful and intentional. I think most people use it more of as a shortcut than to like enhance what's already good. And so I'm weary of it, but I don't want to be one of those people who's like, no to the internet, like, or the blockbuster who's like, no, I won't, transition. So I'm in this middle place of like, how can we use it to support the process? How can we use it to become more efficient? How can we use it to clean up and make better what's already good? But I think it's a danger to look at it to build your brand, your thought leadership, or have any sort of role in kind of building a relationship with your audience. That has to be like fully human.
Yeah. No, I was curious your perspective on that. And I appreciate that. I had Randy Garn on the podcast last year, and we were talking about like what is obviously he's deep in the thought leadership world. And so I said, what do you see for true thought leaders in terms of what we need to be thinking about and doing right now with AI being so
Yeah.
like taking over so many of the things that used to be on us. And his take on it was kind of similar. It was like at the end of the day, people will be with you for life because you help them transform. That's the thing. And that is where, to your point of can we find a way to use this to support human flourishing, but still have really that human connection, the heartfelt piece to your I think another point that you made that I appreciate is like if you're a thought leader, you need to be moving the conversation forward. And so we can use these tools to help us save time, be more efficient, but we have to remember that at the end of the day, there's still like it is still on us to forward the thinking in our space, to bring the real human element. And that's no doubt part of why when you had your when you started your blog and your email list with your adoption story, people connected with it so much because it was heartfelt. I want to ask you about so you mentioned just like bad emails, and there's a lot floating a lot floating out there, right?
Runs, yeah.
uh, so what are some of the things that we may be doing and not aware of that make our emails blend into the noise and just make them
Mm.
bad? I'd love your take on that.
Oh, all right. There's a list. Okay.
Yep.
I think the biggest mistake people make is one that they don't think they're making at all. And it's just to have no strategy. And so we work
Mm,
with a lot of business owners who they're running 7 and 8 figure businesses. And we'll say, okay, what are you doing with your email list? And it's this very like, very much an afterthought. It's like when we have a launch, we send a bunch of emails. Like when we, need to promote a product or an event or something, we send a bunch of emails. We send out our podcast. Like it's just sort of this like dumping ground almost of like, hey, when we need somebody to do something, we just like send an email and get them to do it. And every now and then we'll send like another email that's not asking people to do something. There's no real, like, we would never look at Instagram that way, or, I hope not, or like LinkedIn that way. Like when you're building a content strategy on social media, you look at like, okay, how am I getting, in front of new people? How am I nurturing current people? How am I bringing conversions? Like, from the people who are already following me, like what are my content topics that I'm sticking to? What do I want to be known for? Like you have this very strategic way of building a content plan for your social media. And then email, which are the people who've actually raised their hand at least on some level and said, I like what you have, I'm sticking around. So these people are far more bought in than some random Instagram follower who liked one video, right? So we kind of look at that and we are like, I just send, I don't know, just sit down and write an email, or somebody on my team sends out a podcast. Like that's the plan. So the first big mistake is just not having a strategy. There's no unique inherent value in your list. So You're sending out social media posts that I could just go see somewhere else. You're sending out podcast episodes that I could go listen to somewhere else. You're sending out YouTube videos that I could go watch somewhere else. There's nothing inherently unique about being on your list. That's a huge mistake, other than getting sold to. So that's another mistake. People are just using it to pound sales without giving any value. Again, any value that's unique or inherent. Every value all the value they provide is like, go watch this, go listen to this, go here. I don't get anything for opening your email other than told to go somewhere, you know? So that's another mistake. I think when it comes to like the mechanics of writing, people don't think about their subject lines. I actually wrote an email about subject lines, like ones that were like kind of in the wild. So I went into my inbox and was like, I'm going to find the 10 best subject lines that no one on my team, that they're not from us, they're not from any of our companies, just like out in the wild. Oh my gosh, it took me so long. It took me so long. I was like, why can't I find 10 good ones that really look well thought out? They were just general, generic, like everything else. There was no open hook. They were really clickbaity. It was just like no kind of intention behind it. So that was one. Number two, people send these big long emails with blocks of text or 25 pictures, and it's overwhelming. My master's degree is in teaching students with learning disabilities, and like rule number one in a classroom with kids with learning disabilities is like, don't put a big old passage in front of them. Like, you can cut it, same passage, cut it up in little chunks, give it to them at a time, they're fine. You put a passage in front of them, they're like, oh heck no, that's too much work. Grown-ups are like that too. We all look at a big chunk and we're like, oh no, heck no, I'm not reading that. So it's just too visually overstimulating. And then the first rule of copywriting is really like every job should do one job, which is to get you to read the next line. And I sit down and think of every email like, okay, is this subject line getting you to open? Is this first line getting you to read the next line all the way down to the end? And then is the end getting you to take the action I want? And so I would sum all of that up to say there's no strategy, no intentionality. It's kind of a dumping ground. And then when you are sending out emails, they're just sort of like, I'm not interested, I'm not entertained, and I'm not being informed.
Yeah.
You kind of lost me.
If you're ready to quantum leap your sales, your income, and your life, my team and I are here to help support you. Inside of our coaching programs and our mastermind, we support really driven leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals to achieve their wildest dreams and goals while living in a state of alignment and joy. If you're ready to expand, I want to invite you to schedule a free call with my team to explore how we might be able to help support you in that. You can go to elisearcher.com/free call. Again, that's elisearcher.com/free call. No, and I love that. And even thinking about each piece as, is this getting me to take the next step? Like, is the subject line getting me to open? Is the first line getting me to read further? Which, like, there's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of psychology by that. I'm curious, you mentioned subject lines, and I want to hear from you. What makes a good subject line? You mentioned having a hook, but what is a hook? How do we know what that is? And what are some of the other elements that we should be thinking about if we're looking to create emails that actually get opened and read?
Yeah, this is getting a lot harder. It's harder in
Yeah.
email, it's harder on social because people are becoming more savvy, right? Like, they know now when you say, oh, here's how to make $2 million in an hour, everyone's like, whatever. Like, this is just like fake.
Yeah.
So the first thing you want to think about is, how can you have some sort of pattern interrupt? And the other thing to keep in mind is, this is before you send it. This is before a subject line. When someone sees your name in their inbox, they're getting one of two signals. They're either going to say, that stuff's not good, or, oh my gosh, it's from so and so, I have to open it.
Oh,
And you train people to do that from your first few emails, from your nurture emails. So when you send a nurture sequence that's really boring, really lame, really focused on you, and it's not providing value, what you've done is, over a course of however long your nurture sequence is, 5 to 7 days, you've said, when you see my name in your box, ignore it, because it's not going to be good. So before you talk about a subject line, they need to like see your name and be like, ooh, that's good. I love that. And like want to open it, even if the subject line sucks, because when they see your name, they immediately associate it with like, this is going to be good. That comes from the opt-in you provide, the emails you send that first week or two. So once that's handled, then your subject lines, you want to have some sort of pattern interrupt. Sometimes you can use an emoji or something like that. If it makes sense, like don't be weird. Like don't be broy. Like if it doesn't make sense, don't put it in there. But if you can, then do that. Open loops where you start something but don't resolve it. You're never going to believe what happened when I took my daughter to Disney World. Like
Mm.
something like that, where I'm opening something and not finishing it. Or I just sent one that got a huge open rate. Like I can't believe the gurus are still saying this. And of
Mm.
course everyone's like, oh, or
Like,
controversy, anything that's controversial. Again, I am very anti just being controversial for being controversial. But if it's something you really believe in, I always say if it's a hill you're going to die on and you're willing, because people are going to be mad about it, then like put it out there and put it out there well. So any way that you can interrupt the pattern, get people to like stay curious, like you don't resolve it for them, be a little controversial, you're always going to see higher open rates. What you want to avoid is something that seems really clickbaity, like it's too big, we're all just like, that's ridiculous.
mm.
Where it seems really generic, like how to make more money in business. Like no one's going to do that. So
Mm.
you want to have some specificity. You want to have some curiosity in there. You want to have some sort of visual pattern interrupt. Sometimes you can like do caps for one word, one of the most important word, do all caps, which is just, again, it's a visual breaking up of like, okay, in my inbox, I see 25 emails and I see this one thing, it catches my eye and I'm going to look at it.
Mm.
So those are some things that we do, but it's really dependent on what you're doing. I mean, if you've got a great resource in your email, just say, here's my free guide. It's just straight up, well, they opted in for the free guide. So my first email every time someone opts in for something is open for your free, whatever it was I just told them they were going to get. So it doesn't always have to be clever and fancy. It just has to be like, oh yeah, I just opted in for that thing. I want that thing.
Perfect.
You know,
So just clear sometimes is really, really
number one
good.
rule of all copywriting is be clear. And people try to be all fancy. I was actually on a call with someone, one of our clients, in we have this monthly membership, and she was asking about her messaging. She's like, hey, listen, she tells me like, I finally got it. I finally got who I am. And all that. She's telling me all these things. And I was like, 3 minutes later, I'm like, what? Like, you needed to say all of that in like 1 second. So clarity
Mm.
is always your best friend. It is so much more important to just be clear, honest, concise, and not try to be all fancy.
Fancy. Yeah. Well, and I think, Danielle, one of the like such a brilliant framework and perspective for us to be thinking about is one of the things you shared there, which is when people see my name, am I training them to ignore it or am I training them to get excited and say, oh my gosh, I've got to read this? And I think if we even just have that in mind
Yep.
with everything that we're doing, like you're going to be worlds ahead
Yep.
of so
You
many people.
you can get away with a lot if people see your name and associate it with good content. So,
Yeah.
and we all can think of someone where 90% of what they send us is good. We don't
Mm.
know their subject lines. We're not like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. We just see their name and we open it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
building that in
Okay.
people is what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's so great. And I've got people like that where I follow where I'm like, oh, I don't care what they're doing. I don't care what they're selling, but I just want to see what's in the email because they have probably had that lens and that focus as they've been crafting things. How can I make people excited for this and give value?
Yes.
I'm curious, is there a fine line that you see? Is there any place where like we can put too much of ourselves into our emails? So obviously personality
Mm-hmm.
to our AI conversation earlier, like we want to be sharing from the heart who we are, what we're all about. But
Yeah.
is there a fine line that you see where people are oversharing or being unprofessional? Like anything you would say there that you see?
Yes.
Yeah.
So glad you asked. This is true in email and everywhere else. I am not a fan of make your mess your message. I am a fan of like making your
Mm.
past cleaned up, very well thought through messes, your message. So when you are in the middle of something, when you are too close to something, when you're still feeling the feelings of something, I don't think you should be out here talking about it. I think that undermines your brand. I think that negates the trust you're building. And I think it makes you look a little like shaky.
Yeah.
If it's something that's far removed, you've got a lot of insight, like you've had a big business failure and it's something that happened years ago and you've learned all these lessons and you've rebuilt and you've recovered, like awesome. Like talk about that, teach those stories, like be emotional about it. That's totally fine. I think you need to really think through, and it's different if you're building like an influencer brand and your only goal is like brand deals and all it requires is relatability, you could be a mess. If you're trying to be an expert who's charging high ticket prices for something that somebody's going to get some sort of result from you in, and you're out here crying because your marriage is falling apart, it's probably not the best thing. Even though your marriage might have nothing to do with your business, it doesn't make you look together. It doesn't make you look like, oh, that's somebody that's trustworthy. It makes you look like a little, I don't know, you're a little shaky. So keep it to yourself. Maybe a year later you say, hey, last year was one of the hardest years of my life. Let me tell you about it. And
Mm,
you have some perspective, you have some space, you're able to talk about it in a way that, maybe you've worked through some of the implications of it. And so you have wisdom to share, not just like, here I am as a mess. There's a
yeah.
difference between like being in the middle and like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess. And I've gone through something hard. I've come through the other side. I've got some wisdom to share with you. Those are two very different things. And I think whether it's email or social media, that you really need to be careful of how you're presenting them.
Yeah. That's a really, really good perspective. And I think just that like healthy dose of self-awareness
Yes.
around, where am I in this? And am I still that's kind of how I think about it for myself. Like if I'm emotionally triggered by something right now, it means that there's still healing that needs done. There's still transformation that needs done. There's still learning it. We get to do that our whole lives. We don't have to be perfect to be able to be positioned as experts. But I think to your point of coming from the place where you have the lesson. You're not emotionally triggered by it anymore. It's turned into wisdom at
Yes.
this point. Like that is really, really powerful. So I think that's a helpful distinction
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So
And you can still have personality in your content. You can still be you. You can still joke. You can still say, hey, this has been a really hard year. I'm going through a hard season without like dumping it all. Like
right.
you can still do it in a tactful, tasteful, helpful way, even in the
Yes.
middle. So
Yeah. I love your approach to it. Gosh, I want to ask you so many more questions. I I want to be mindful of time. So I have a couple of quick rapid fire questions for you. And I want to get your take on, we're calling this inbox hot takes. So I want to get your take on a few things before we tell everyone where they can connect with you and learn more about your work. So all you need to do, I'm just going to throw out some perspectives on marketing, and I want you to react and just let us know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You can be brief, succinct, tell us your why. I think this first one, I absolutely know what you're going to say,
okay.
but there are some people out there who say email is dead. What would you say to that?
Oh, I think they're just not doing it well. I make money
Ooh,
from my email list every single week.
I
So
love that.
if you think it's dead, you're not doing it well.
I love that. How about the opinion that emails should be super short? Like no one reads long emails.
No one reads bad emails. People read
Ooh.
long emails all the time if they're good.
Yes. Okay. I love that. And final one, that the best way to grow your email list is through a viral lead magnet. What's your take on that?
I think the best way to grow your email list is through continued promotion of the value that they'll get from your email list. So whether that's through a lead magnet that you run ads to, organically viral, or it's just something that you send out in messages every day to people, it doesn't matter. The value is inherent in the lead magnet. People will want it. And so I think there's a million ways to grow an email list. I think anytime you ever say there's one way, it's always wrong.
Yes. Yes.
So,
That is my take on everything in life too. Like there's not just one way. There's a lot of different ways.
yes.
And a lot of it comes down to what's aligned and what feels like you. And again, your perspective. Am I aiming to always give value? Am I aiming to
Yes.
help people? Am I aiming to condition people that what I'm bringing is good and heartfelt?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this was so powerful. I learned so much. I was personally really looking forward to this because this is an area where I always want to be learning and growing. And I feel like I learned so much from you in a really short amount of time. So thank you, Danielle, for all of this. Would you please tell people where they can connect with you, what the best way is to get in touch and learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, there's two places I hang out. So you can go to my LinkedIn, Danielle Ceballos, and then Instagram. I'm trying to get back in the game. So it's Danielle C Marketing there. And if you DM me on either of those places, I'll send you a free email sequences guide where I tell you the 3 email sequences you need, and then I give you an email by email like layout of it.
Ooh, that is super helpful. That is super helpful. We will link all of that in the show notes. So thank you again for being here and for sharing so openly and generously. And again, just for sharing your expertise. I really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And to you, my listener, I just want to remind you to trust yourself on your path to success. Your desires are green lights, leading you and everyone around you to a brighter